Welcome in, Mr. Jorgens here. Ready for another day of math. We're going to be covering 9.4 on completing the square today. This is a part 1. A little bit of a shorter period today, so make sure you stay on task so you can push through it. There'll be a few questions for you along the way, so make sure you pay attention so you can answer them. So today's lesson is all about filling in the blank. So you're going to have a bunch of equations like x squared plus 6x plus, and then a blank line. And today's lesson is all about figuring out what number goes on that blank line. Now, the way we're going to kind of think about this is by setting up a picture. So we have x squared, and x squared is, in terms of its area, x by x, x times x, right? So x by x would be a square, right? X by x with an area x squared. We also have x's, which would have like x length in one direction and a length of 1 in another direction. For an area x times 1 makes x. And then we have just ones, individual ones, and those would be 1 by 1 squares with an area of 1. And so how we're going to think about how to fill in that blank is by drawing a picture, and we're going to do what's called completing the square. So we're going to draw a picture, we're going to try to set up a square, and then what's left over in order to complete the square, that's going to go on that blank line. So I have 1x squared, so I'm going to draw my 1x squared on here. There it is. And then I have 6x's. I'm trying to set up this with symmetry. And what I mean by that is I'm trying to set it up so that I end up with a square. So, for instance, if I put all 6 of them over here, there's no real way for me to end up with a square because this side here is going to be so much longer than this side here, right? I need the length and width to be the same amount. So when I go to set this up, I'm going to split my 6 x's and put 3 of them on the length side of blue and 3 of them on the width side. So 1, 2, 3 x's. And then rather than putting the 4th one right next to it, I'm going to put it down here and put 1, 2, and 3 x's. Right, there's my 6 x's. They're all accounted for now within the picture. Now what I should see is in order to complete this square, I need to fill in that green region down there. And the question is, how big is that green region? Now the good thing is these are all a width of 1. So I can kind of see that this green region down here would be 3 by 3. And hopefully you can kind of see how that 3 by 3 region would kind of fill in there. And then total I'd have 9 little green squares down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's because it's 3 by 3. So that would mean 9 would be the number that would go on there to complete the square. All right. So that's kind of the idea behind what we're doing today is we're just trying to fill in that blank. And so in this case, the number that would fill in the blank would be 9 because there would be 9 kind of squares in that 3 by 3 grid in the bottom right corner. All right, let's try another one by building out that diagram. So I have x squared plus 8x plus blank. And so x squared plus 8x plus blank. So I'm going to start by putting my x squared on here. And an x squared is x by x, right? And then I have 8 x's. So I can put my 8 x's on here, 4 by 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 x's and 5, 6, 7, 8 x's. Now what that leaves me with is it leaves me with this bottom section that I need to complete the square. And I should see that this bottom section is going to be 4 by 4. And that's because I split my x's 4 and 4. And so 4 by 4 x's should 4 by 4 make 16, right? So there's 16 little squares there. So 16 would be my number that goes on that blank line in this case. Now let's take a step back and look at the two examples we've had so far. The first one was x squared plus 6x plus blank. And after some work, I figured out that 9 was the number that went on that line. And then the second one was x squared plus 8x plus blank. And after some work, I realized that 16 was the number that went on that line. Now, if we kind of take a step back even further, if I think about it, the way I got 9 was 3 by 3, and the way that I got 16 was 4 by 4. And so if you look really carefully, you might notice that what I'm basically doing is I'm taking that number in the middle, 6, and I'm cutting it in half, right? So I'm basically taking 6 and dividing it by 2 to get 3, and then I'm doing 3 times 3, and 3 times 3 would be squaring it, right? So in this case, I took my 8 and divided it by 2 to get 4, and then 4 times 4, which is squaring it, right? So if I'm doing this in general, like x squared, we often call it x squared plus bx plus c. So x squared plus bx plus a blank there. What I would do is I would take my number in the middle. So it was 6 or 8. In this case, just b in general. And I'm going to divide whatever that number in front of x is, the b. I'm going to divide it by 2. And then once I divide it by 2, I'm going to square it. And that'll give me the number on that blank line here, which we often call c. So knowing that process, we wouldn't necessarily have to draw out the picture every time. Now, I do think it's helpful to see that picture, but we wouldn't have to draw it out every time. We could kind of just use the formula b divided by 2 squared. All right? So I'm going to give you a chance to try a couple problems here, and you can either draw out the picture or you can use the formula in order to figure out what the c is on that blank line. All right, here's an example for you to try. X squared plus 10x plus blank. Our goal is to fill in that blank line there. You can either draw your picture or you can use the formula b divided by 2 squared. So go ahead and work that out and enter your answer that fills in the blank when you're ready. All right, I'll show you both ways. We'll start with the picture. So within the picture, I have an x squared, and I have 10 x's, which I'll split 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so what's left over in that bottom right section is a 5 by 5 grid there, which a 5 by 5 grid is 25 squares there. Now, if I wanted to get there by using the formula, I would have taken my 10 and divided by 2 and then squared it. So 10 divided by 2 would make 5, and then 5 squared would make 25. So either way you get to 25, it doesn't matter, but hopefully you did enter 25 as your answer for this one. All right, so I'm going to try this one for you, x squared minus 9x plus blank. And the reason why is because we have a odd number in there. And you're going to realize when we have an odd number, it's going to end up looking a little different. So x squared minus 9x plus blank. Now, if you ever have an odd number or even a negative on the inside, I usually go from our formula, b divided by 2 squared. And in this case, my b is a negative 9, so negative 9 divided by 2 squared. Now, the reason why this is a little tough is because last time I divided the inside part. So I divided, I think it was 10 divided by 2. And 10 divided by 2 went even and got 5. But this time it would be negative 4.5, right? And I don't really want a decimal. So if it's not going to go in evenly, if I'm going to have a decimal, what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to leave it as a fraction. And the way I can leave it as a fraction is just by squaring the top and squaring the bottom. So when I do that, I end up with negative 9 squared, which is 81. and 2 squared, which is 4. And 81 does not divide 4 evenly. Like if I did 81 into 4, I would get 2 with nothing left. Bring down the 1, nothing. So 20, and 1 left over out of 4, so it doesn't go in evenly. So I'm actually able to just call my answer a fraction on this one, 81 over 4, and I don't need to I don't need to reduce that at all. I don't need to turn it into a decimal, so we can leave our answer as a fraction in this case. All right, I'm going to have you try 2 here. X squared minus 5x plus blank is the first one. Go ahead and try that one on your own and enter your answer when you're ready. All right, so we'd have negative 5 over 2 squared. It's an odd number, so 5 isn't going to divide 2 evenly. So I'd have negative 5 squared over 2 squared. Negative 5 times negative 5 is positive 25, and 2 times 2 makes 4. So 25 over 4 would go on that blank. All right, last one for you to try here. X squared minus 12x plus blank. Go ahead and try that one. Fill in the blank and enter your answer when you are ready. All right, so on this one we'd have negative 12 over 2 and square it. I'm not going to draw the picture, but you definitely could have gotten there by drawing the picture. This time it's even, so 12 does divide 2 evenly. I get negative 6 squared. Remember, even if you have a negative times a negative makes a positive, and 6 times 6 makes 36, so positive 36 would be our number on the line there. All right, we should be ready to try the big ideas math for 9.4 part 1, that section of the big ideas, so go ahead and give that a shot and let me know if you have any questions.